Success. It's something we all strive for in some form or fashion, but what is it? What is success? There are multiple definitions these days. However, there seems to be just one common thread that most people do agree on about success. And that is this, that success is a byproduct of persisting in the face of failure. So, that is what we hope to share with you on this video. Inspirational success stories that clearly reveal the road commonly traveled by people who have achieved staggering success. Our purpose in sharing these success stories is that they may encourage you to keep striving towards your dreams, and keep you believing that achieving the impossible is actually possible. With that being said, here are the top success stories to inspire you to succeed in the face of failure, setbacks, and obstacles. If you are ready to be inspired, let's dive in. 1. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone has one of the most inspiring success stories. Before he made it big, he was essentially a starving artist. For many years during and after his college years, he worked odd jobs to pay the bill while simultaneously taking on any acting roles he could find to keep his dreams of becoming a successful actor alive. It was a struggle that Sylvester would endure for many years, 7 in fact. Throughout all of those 7 challenging years, Sylvester would gain a few small roles in a handful of movies, but nothing grand enough to get his career launched. During those 7 long years of striving, he came face to face with near poverty. Getting so desperate for money he at one point had to sell his wife's jewelry out of desperation for money. He even had to sell his dog because he couldn't keep him fed. And to top it all off, there came a point where Sylvester was homeless, and had to sleep outside for a number of days. But, his days of struggle as an aspiring actor would not last forever. After facing seemingly insurmountable odds for over 7 years, he would finally get his big break. And this break would come after he managed to get a script he wrote in a 3-day flurry of inspiration, in front of 2 big shot directors in Hollywood. It was this defining moment that would turn the tides for Sylvester Stallone, and his career would skyrocket after he negotiated the lead role in the film that would come to be known as Rocky. 2. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Considering Arnold Schwarzenegger as the epitome of the self-made man, we wouldn't dare exclude him from our success stories collection. Having been born and raised in Austria, at a time where it was still healing from its defeat in World War II, the odds were already stacked against him. Arnold grew up in a climate where alcoholism was rampant, where defeatism was the norm, and big dreaming was laughed at. But Arnold didn't care. He knew he didn't want to live the traditional Austrian life his parents wanted for him, and he knew he wanted to move to America, the land of the free. As such, he hatched a plan to become a success in bodybuilding, and then use that success to get into movies. And sure enough, he did just that. He went on to fulfill his vision by becoming the youngest man to ever win a Mr. Universe competition, and then on to win 5 Mr. Universe titles and 7 Mr. Olympia titles. After reaching what he set out to do in the sport of bodybuilding, he then went on to commit himself to the acting career he had always dreamed of. And sure enough, he would go on to conquer the film industry to the same degree that he conquered the bodybuilding world. Going on to star in multiple blockbuster movies that would gross over $3 billion, and earn him one of the most sizable net worths in Hollywood. 3. J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling had a dream of becoming a writer early on. But, she would have to persist for many years before her dream of becoming a published author would materialize. Almost as soon as she decided to get to work on putting her ideas down on paper for her book, she would be sidetracked by her mother's death. The depression that would ensue left Rowling seeking out a job as a teacher in another country. Soon after, she would get married and have a child, which would delay her aspirations even further. But things weren't done going off the rails for Rowling, as her marriage would abruptly end just 1 year after it began, leading her to be jobless with a child, and barely surviving off of unemployment benefits. However, despite her challenges, Rowling would persist in the creation of her book. And she did so by seizing every spare moment she could while her child slept to write. Until finally the day came when she completed her manuscript. Of course, even after Rowling finished her manuscript, obstacles still remained. 12 different publishers would reject her novel, and she found herself almost ready to quit before her manuscript would eventually get accepted. And it was at that moment that J.K. Rowling's luck turned around. Now, J.K. Rowling is now one of the best-selling authors of all time. In fact, she is the highest-paid novelist in the world, with her books having been translated into over 80 different languages with over 500 million being sold. Clearly, persistence and patience pays off in the long run. 4. Steven Spielberg. Most people don't know this, but Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school 3 times. But he didn't let those rejections stop him, and he kept applying till he got accepted. Eventually Cal State, Long Beach would accept him into their film program. Fortunately for Spielberg, he would then go on to leverage his opportunity at Cal State to land an unpaid internship at Universal Studios. Of course, this internship wouldn't last forever, but it lasted just long enough for him to learn how to sneak into the studios undetected so he could continually gather intel on what it would take to become successful in the business. Finally, the day would come that he managed to get a film he created in the hands of film executives. But he had to first overcome the film executives' multiple attempts to make him give up. After being told that the film size was not the right size multiple times, and remaking the entire demo to the recommended sizes every time, the executives finally relented and gave him his film a shot. The movie would go on to win major awards, and solidified Steven Spielberg's place within the industry. Steven Spielberg is now one of the most influential filmmakers in history and one of the wealthiest filmmakers in the world. And out of all of our inspirational stories of success, his story in particular shows that if you knock long enough and hard enough, the doors of opportunity will eventually swing open for you. 5. Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo grew up in a household that was barely getting by. As a child, he had to share a room with 3 of his siblings due to their meager financial situation. There were even times where they didn't have enough money to buy a soccer ball just so he could play in the streets. But Ronaldo did not let his environment dictate his destiny. No, instead he would find ways to play the sport he loved even without the ball. He would use bottles, rags, or pretty much anything he could find to make a makeshift ball just so he could play. Eventually, Cristiano would get so good at soccer that he would have to make the ultimate sacrifice at the age of 11 to move over 500 miles away from his family to train with a prestigious soccer academy. It's a good thing he did too, because by doing so, he put himself on track to eventually become one of the best players in history. Now Cristiano Ronaldo is known as the greatest Portuguese player of all time by the Portuguese Football Federation. He is also considered by millions of soccer fans all across the globe to be the greatest of all time. In addition to this, he is the first soccer player ever to earn over $1 billion, while generating one of the largest net worths among professional athletes. 6. Lionel Messi. Since we are on the topic of soccer, we might as well mention Lionel Messi's success story because it's every bit as inspiring. Here's why. At age of 11, Messi was cut from his soccer team because they thought he was too small to play. And he was small, but it was because he had a growth hormone deficiency which made him a lot smaller than all the other kids his age. Fortunately, Messi didn't let this deter him. Instead, he would place himself on a strict regimen where he would inject growth hormones into himself. And he would go on to inject himself with this hormone for 7 days in one leg, and then 7 days in the other. Messi would keep this routine up for 6 years. The great news is, Messi's sacrifice and persistence paid off. Because now, he is one of the highest paid soccer players with a staggering net worth, and is considered by legions of fans to be one of the best soccer players of all time due to his winning soccer's highest achievement, the Ballon d'Or, 6 times. Success requires sacrifice. 7. Michael Jordan. Since we mentioned the greatest of all time in soccer, we can't leave out the man many consider to be the greatest of all time in basketball. Now, most people aren't aware of this, but when Michael Jordan was merely a sophomore in high school, he already had big dreams of being a great basketball player. So he did something brash and tried out for the varsity team. But things didn't go his way and he got himself cut from the team. This rejection hit Jordan especially hard because of his oversized dreams and expectations. In fact, the rejection hit him so hard he went home afterwards and cried in his closet. Even though that rejection still bothered Jordan, he dusted himself off and went all in for the JV team. He trained like no other in the off-season and grew 4 extra inches. And the following year he tried out for the varsity team again. But this second time around, he made it. Not only did he make it, but he went on to become the team's MVP, making the All-American team, and eventually earned himself a college scholarship. And from there, well, you know the rest of the story. He went on to become the man who would score 32,292 points in a basketball career, acquire 6 NBA championships, collect 5 MVP titles, and come to be considered as the greatest basketball player of all time. For all the success stories we've covered, this one clearly shows the importance of having great expectations and resilience after rejection. 8. Paulo Coelho. Over 30 years ago, a book titled The Alchemist was published and hardly anyone noticed. The author of this book was a man named Paulo Coelho, and he was told by the first bookseller to carry his book, that only one person bought a copy after it was released. As bad as it was to hear about the grim results, Coelho remained confident in his work. He waited for better results to appear, but they were slow to come by as 6 months would pass before the next copy would be sold. Oddly, the person who bought his first book was the same person who bought the second. After that first year, the publisher decided that the book was a flop and ended Coelho's contract. Fortunately, though, Coelho shrugged off that initial defeat. He made up his mind to not give in, and so he doubled down to pursue his vision with even more fervor by finding another publisher. Now finding this new publisher was no easy task, as he was met with rejection after rejection. But he finally did land that new publisher, and with it, another opportunity to capture his dream. From that point forward, Coelho's dreams started to come true. At first, he only sold 3,000 books. But the sales kept trickling in, as he then sold 10,000, and then 100,000, and on and on. Coelho's luck has yet to run out, as his book sales continue to grow year over year, with now over 150 million and counting copies of The Alchemist having been sold. Even more staggering is the fact that he sold over 320 million books when counting all of his works. Paulo Coelho's story shows that if you truly want something bad enough, all the universe really will conspire to help you make that dream happen. 9. Abraham Lincoln. Most of us know of this great man because of what he did for his country. The Emancipation Proclamation, which led to the abolition of slavery, was a massive accomplishment. But what most don't realize about Abraham Lincoln is that he has one of the most impressive rap sheets when it comes to overcoming defeat. In short, his success story consists of a list of failures and setbacks so sizable that you would hardly think it belonged to one of the greatest presidents of the United States of America. Here's a great example of the many failures Lincoln endured, with a few victories he managed to sprinkle in over his lifetime. In 1832, he lost his job. In 1832, he was defeated for legislature. In 1833, he failed in business. In 1834, he was elected to legislature. In 1835, the woman he loved died. In 1836, he had a nervous breakdown. In 1838, he was defeated for Speaker. In 1843, he was defeated for nomination for Congress. In 1848, he lost renomination. In 1849, he was rejected for land officer. In 1854, he was defeated for Senate. In 1856, he was defeated for nomination for vice president. In 1858, again defeated for Senate. In 1860, he was elected for President of the United States of America. To be sure, Lincoln failed his way to success, and his recorded failures helps us realize the truth behind the Michael Jordan quote we mentioned earlier, and that is, that the key to success is through failure. 10. Tom Brady. One of our favorite inspirational stories of success comes from Tom Brady. Brady didn't follow the typical athletic path into the NFL. While most athletes begin getting groomed for the sport by the 3rd grade, Tom Brady wouldn't set foot onto the gridiron until the 9th grade. In fact, his debut into actually getting onto the football field didn't come until his sophomore year when the starting quarterback for the JV team quit. Fortunately for Brady, that opportunity helped him capture the starting varsity QB role by the time his junior year arrived. After finding success at the high school level, Brady would eventually go on to become a Michigan Wolverine. But success wasn't a given for Brady at this level. Nope, he had to earn it. In fact, Brady came into the program as an underdog, with 7 other quarterbacks ahead of him on the depth chart. After almost requesting a transfer to another school, Brady's determination would eventually win him the coveted starting position by the time he was a junior. The obstacles Brady would face continued on even into the pros. Brady had his mind set to play in the pros, but there was very little interest in him during the draft. In fact, Brady barely made the draft, being chosen in the 6th round as the 199th pick. Brady was grossly underrated and underestimated by every coach in the league. His draft report from 2000 NFL Draft actually stated the following qualities: poor build, skinny. Lacks great physical stature and strength. Lacks mobility and ability to avoid the rush. Lacks a really strong arm. Can't drive the ball downfield. Doesn't throw a really tight spiral. System-type player who can get exposed if forced to ad-lib. Gets knocked down easily. Indeed, Tom Brady was not the highest-rated quarterback. He wasn't the most well-groomed for the sport, nor was he the best athlete. In addition, he didn't have the best numbers, or even the best mechanics. However, Tom Brady did have the most heart and determination. Thus, through sheer willpower, he pushed himself to becoming one of the greatest football players of all times. And he has proved his case with the following accolades: most NFL championships by a player, most games won by a quarterback, most games played by a quarterback, most combined passing yards, most touchdown passes, most fourth-quarter comebacks, best touchdown-to-interception ratio, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time MVP of the NFL, 2-time NFL All-Decade Team Player, only player to win a Super Bowl for both the AFC and NFC. We decided to add one last bonus success story to drive the point home that it's never too late to be what you might have been, and that no matter where you come from, or where you've been, you can change, you can clean up your act, and you can find massive success in the process. So, this last success story is about a man who grew up poor in Louisiana, lost his father at a young age, and was raised a single-parent household with 4 other siblings. This last story is about a man named Grant Cardone. Cardone is not your typical celebrity. He didn't come from money, he is not a Hollywood superstar, and doesn't possess some amazing talent, like script writing, politics, or athleticism. However, what he does possess is something that is available to us all, and that is a determination to succeed. Grant Cardone found himself in bad company in his youth. He was involved and addicted to drugs, and was stuck in a downward spiral for over a decade. After getting robbed at gunpoint, getting beaten to a bloody pulp with a gun, and then getting kicked out of his mother's house, he finally decided to change his life. At the age of 25, Grant Cardone decided to clean up his act. He cut all the negative influences from his life, got sober, and took one of the first jobs he could land as a car salesman. It wasn't a job he was thrilled about, but he made do given that his options were limited because of a slow economy at the time. Cardone committed to becoming the best salesperson he could be and invested heavily in his own self-improvement by reading books and studying his craft and his industry. After committing to becoming his very best, his income doubled, and he soon became one of the best car salesmen in the country. He eventually moved on to running his own business, and was extremely smart and disciplined with his money. He would go on to save every dollar that wasn't absolutely needed to keep him fed and housed, and moved that money into an investment fund just for real estate. Grant Cardone's focus on learning more so that he could earn more, along with having the discipline to invest his extra money, instead of wasting it on frivolous things, helped him become a self-made millionaire just 5 years later by the age of 30. Cardone has since gone on to become a prominent international businessman, speaker, and the owner of Cardone Capital, a $1.5 billion investment firm. He's also authored New York Times best-selling books If You're Not First, You're Last, and other notable books like The 10X Rule, and Axiom award-winning Sell or Be Sold. In addition to this, he also founded Cardone University, a popular sales training platform that has accrued over 50 million and growing users. It took Grant Cardone only 5 years to completely revolutionize his entire life. With the right mindset and a good dose of willpower, just imagine what 5 years could do for you. Final thoughts. Hopefully these success stories help you realize that while success may be elusive, it is not unattainable. We also hope that you've come to understand that success is both a journey and a destination. And in order to achieve success, you'll have to first go through your share of struggles, rejections, and even disasters. So, Keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the prize. Keep moving towards your dreams no matter what. Do this, and your success will be just around the corner. If you like the kind of these stories, please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.